Hello and welcome to Life with Francie podcast, a place where you will find all kinds of conversations like mental health, self-love, self-care, trauma, hobbies, and more. With this podcast, I want to create a community where we support one another in personal and business life. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Now, let's get the show started. So, on today's episode, I have the pleasure to talk to Stephan Neff, and his whole brand is Steps to Sobriety. I already have been cracking up with him, so the energy is high. I can't wait for this conversation, and it's going to mean the world to me to get to know him. So let's welcome Stephan. So tell us, what is life with you?
Hi, Francie. Thank you so much for letting me be a guest on your show. It is very much a privilege. It is an honor for me. And what is life with me? What an opening question. My goodness. Well, nowadays, it's actually exciting. It's beautiful. It is a life that I chose. I have for a long time in my life, I have been run by my core beliefs, which were pretty screwed up, by emotions, which were not so nice. And I had no idea about all that. So basically, I was like Pavlov's dog. You ring a bell, and well, the dog starts drooling. I was getting angry, or I was whatever emotion was just on the flavor of the day. So it was weird. My past. And unfortunately, lots of trauma and lots of things. And I think in a summary, I mean, in one short uh, short fact, I think I was trying to escape my reality for a very, very, very long time. And it was really only 8 years ago when I went into rehab and was exposed to some amazing people and some amazing ideas, where really a journey for me began to find myself and to figure out, who do I want to be when I grow up? And that is something that is a privilege that not many people really realize that they have. And so for me, this was beautiful. And so nowadays, I live intentional. I live very focused in a beautiful way. And yeah, that is me today.
I love that. I'm starting my journey uh, in, of just loving myself, accepting
Mm.
myself, and not letting go of the trauma, because I think it's like always near by you. I hope, give me hope that it's one day it goes away, but
The
I'm
problem is,
still in the process.
oh, of course, look, trauma keeps reappearing. And trauma has come in layers, pretty much like an onion. Okay. In the past, trauma came in layers. So, equally, the healing needs to come in layers. You're not ready in 1 second to address absolutely every single trauma that you have gone through. Bloody hell. In my case, that I'm still not, I'm still not finished with that. And that was the past. But sometimes we get so caught up in the past that we forget that we need to live now and need to make the most out of every second right now, because the past is finished. We can't do anything about it. We can learn from it. And that is what many programs such as the 12 steps or other programs or other ways of thinking are focusing on. And that's beautiful. And but that is the past. So one shouldn't really dwell too much there. And I strongly believe that the past does not equal the future. Now, the future hasn't really happened yet. And you can you can get really quite upset, especially nowadays, if you look at the news cycles. I mean, that is the next COVID strain is just around the corner. The Third World War is starting. We have got a financial crisis, and that's just for breakfast. So,
Oh my
you know,
goodness.
well,
When you put
exactly,
it that way.
well, exactly. It's you might as
Yeah,
well
yeah.
cut your wrists. No, rubbish,
No.
rubbish. No, 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 no. These are all things that quite quite truly are happening. Having said
Yeah.
that, you have no control over them. What you do have a control over is right now looking after yourself and looking after those people in your immediate vicinity. With every second, you have got choices to make. And that is something I learned in my recovery, that this privilege of choice is something that many of us take for granted. I certainly
Yes.
have taken for granted in the past. Nowadays, I'm far more conscious about it. And there are constantly choices to be made. What shall I eat tonight? Could be a beautiful chicken breast with some broccoli, cauliflower, and some spices with that. Yum. That's a few calories, lots of good stuff in there. Or I could have fish and chips and good English traditional food with a calorie content that goes above the scales. So both of them are choices. Both of them will taste really yummy, and there are consequences with each of these choices. So I've learned that the choices that we make are either bringing us closer to where we want to go or pull us a bit away from where we want to go. And I think that is where the intentional living comes in. I'm not holier than the Pope. From now and then, I do eat fish and chips. No two ways around it. And please, a piece of cheesecake. Oh, anytime, especially German baked cheesecake. I'm a sucker for that. Bring it on. But more often than not, I will probably choose something healthier. And especially this year, 2023, I have made my year. This is where I choose to go on a new journey. Because 8 years ago, I mean, I hit a bit rock bottom, a bit. I hit rock bottom, full stop.
Yeah.
And there was no bit there.
Yeah.
It was
No
enough is enough.
question about it.
No. Oh, simply because there was I tried to escape my reality. I tried to escape all the trauma that happened in my life. And I tried to do so with alcohol, with work. So I was first a workaholic, then I was an alcoholic, and then there are a few other holics in there somewhere.
Hmm.
So escaping reality was really what I tried to do. But the funny thing is that you can only do that for a certain amount of time. And after a while, it doesn't work anymore, this running away, this ostrich attitude. And I needed more and more and more and more vodka to actually get on top of these emotions. And even then, no. And the vodka came with its own problems, the
Yeah.
anxiety, the constant guilt and shame
Oh my
about
gosh, this
drinking too
cycle
much.
is
Uh,
horrible.
exactly. And it was awful, essentially awful. And it took the ongoing love of my wife to actually disarm me and get me off my defenses. For her to go behind my back and one day organize an admission to a rehab hospital and talking to my boss and saying, hey, we're in trouble. And the boss agreed and said, look, Stefan, don't worry about it. You're off work now. Sort your shit out. And that was it. So by doing that in a really loving way and doing an intervention like that, my wife succeeded. And finally, I was able to stop running and I was able to stop fighting. And I could finally actually focus on myself. And that was when the journey really started. That was the most beautiful part or the beautiful transformation in my life. So that was amazing.
I'm trying to get there right now. I'm like jogging. I'm not running, but I'm still jogging. Like,
Mm.
should I stay or should I
There we go.
go?
As long as you're not jogging away from dealing with your problems, then I think that is the thing. You need to figure out where you are at. So, and I think in my case, the alcohol was giving me far more problems than it solved. But we need to remember that people don't just drink because they love this poison. This is such a nice
No.
Chardonnay. Therefore, I'm going to drink 3 bottles of it. Bullshit. Bullshit. No, you are drinking because you want to stop the pain or you want to distract yourself, something along those lines. So therefore, the alcohol, often when I speak to my guests on my show, they are often initially really good friends. People who are shy come out of their shell and become maybe a person they want to be. And that was certainly true with me when I started drinking, when I discovered alcohol proper when I went to university, so 18, 19. And so it gave me a lot of advantages. And it was a true friend for a while. But the problem is, if you only rely on that friend, on that crutch, and don't deal with the underlying issues or the new issues that keep arising, my goodness, you very quickly end up in a scenario where it doesn't work anymore. Where, as I said, down the line, many years down the line for many people, the drinking is getting heavier and heavier, and you just simply don't get any joy out of it anymore. It just, if at all, it numbs you. Certainly
Yeah.
in the last days, there was no fun. Alcohol in the early days came for me with a sound effect. It was like, ah, that was the sound effect.
Yeah.
Alcohol made me relax, made me, literally, I felt the warmth in my tummy. I felt my shoulders going loose. And I thought, oh, yeah. And it gave me a second wind. So I would have worked 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours and tired. But no, I don't want to be tired because I had somehow this core belief that my life needs to be a constant Coca-Cola advertisement. I'm young, I'm good, I'm fit, I'm dancing. Bullshit, bullshit. But somehow, at some stage in my life, that was engraved deep in my psyche. That is how a man needs to be, constant, full of swagger. That's the word there were so many shitty beliefs in me that made me constantly fail in my own appreciation of what I was seemingly supposed to be. Now, guess what? You can't live that James Bond lifestyle all the time. You can't be a Coca-Cola advertisement all the time, but I had not figured that out. More importantly, it was running below my consciousness. So therefore, there were a lot of really fucked up core beliefs that drove me and ultimately convinced me that I'm a failure. And therefore, regardless what I achieved in my life, I still consider myself a failure. Um, and it was just bizarre. It was just bizarre. And there's still nowadays this imposter feeling, this kind of, no, you're not good
Mm-hmm.
enough. You're not. Who are you to have a show? Who are you to be a speaker and go on to other shows and share your thing? Come on, you an author? Well, the sheer fact that I've written, I don't know how many books now, and that I have actually done that, my mind doesn't want to register that. I'm very bad in celebrating my wins.
Oh
I'm
my
very
gosh.
good.
I
Uh-huh.
just started that like 3 months ago, 6 months ago, to
Yeah,
start celebrating myself because we're so easy to be so hard on ourselves. And
absolutely.
I'm enjoying this conversation because, as I shared with you before the interview, I have family members who have suffered from alcoholism, and I
Mm,
have a lot of family members. So half of them is like, ew, no, I want nothing to do with you. You're a waste of oxygen. And the other half is like how you said on your website, love the addict, hate the addiction.
mm,
Half
mm,
of my family members sees the disease,
mm.
not
Yeah,
see the person struggling inside. And
yeah.
like talking to you, I'm just like, oh my gosh, the things that my family members that I lost because of alcohol, because literally their liver gave out, and I'm talking in their 50s.
Mm,
So they
mm.
were just starting life. And I would love to have had this conversation with one of my uncles, or even, my grandma, because I knew like she had to suffer with a lot inside. And that meant the voice mentally had to be stronger than the reality of what was going happening in their lives.
Mm. And we sometimes forget, especially when you go one generation, two generations back, the amount of of negative things they lived through. It's not for nothing that nowadays, probably my generation will look at the next generation, my sons, which are 20 and 21, entitled little shits. Uh, you know, that kind of attitude. And that
Yeah.
attitude comes from the fact that I had to work so much harder than they ever will. And the same, even the generation before me, they could
Yeah.
say the same there. I came from poor circumstances, so and so did my family. So I know the suffering that went through, but they went through. But at the same token, now add the Second World War or the immediate aftermath, add big depressions, add all those kind of things, the
And
societal madness of if you are pregnant out of wedlock, you're shunned, things like that,
and
the
the
behavior.
difference in country, because I came from Puerto Rico, so
Ah,
my family had like nothing. We came
exactly.
from nothing, and my aunts and uncles were able to do something from an alcoholic mother and a domestic abusive father. Then they had to raise 24 kids at the same time. So out of 11 kids, only two
Yeah.
came out as an alcoholic because they
Mm,
didn't want to deal with their own demons.
mm, yeah.
Uh, but it's still not, it was the disease that was eating them alive
Mm,
because they were good people.
mm,
They make us laugh. They were always the life of the party, like, oh, it was so hard to see them. But how did you get the motivation, to start writing about your story and then going on about a podcast? How did that all went about?
mm. I think when you go through a lot of shit in your life, at some stage you ask yourself the question, what is it all for? Why did I have to go through so much? And you sooner or later start giving back, and you start telling your story so that others maybe don't have to make the same mistakes, or that you can maybe give a little bit of hope because you've gone through something that others are now struggling with. So would it not be nice to maybe just tell them, hey, there is this rehab hospital and these are really good people, and they really treated me like with respect and with dignity, and it was a beautiful experience, still dramatic but beautiful. So, you start talking maybe to one person. And then, being a doctor, being an anesthetist, I made a point of um, holding educational sessions in the hospital. We call them grand rounds, where basically the whole doctors turn up once a week. And I did a grand round on my journey as a doctor, and now being an alcoholic in recovery. How did I go about it? What was my experience, etc. So I started sharing those things with the people around me. And some years down the line, my wife said, well, why don't you write a book? And I thought, no, I can't do that. Who am I to write a book? And I started tentatively. And when I started writing, I couldn't stop. It was just, wow. It was quite cathartic. It was quite,
Mhm.
quite releasing a lot of things. And I realized that some of the healing still needed to be done. So the first draft of my steps to sobriety was actually quite dark. It was really guts, snot, tears, blood, you name it. It was in there, and I gave it to the boss of the rehab hospital, who was my mentor at that time, and he read it and he sort of said, "You know what, Stefan? People know the dark side of alcohol. Often enough, they're living it. What they want to know is the good side, that there is hope, that you want to get out of it, and that you can get out of it, and how you went about it." And that was actually such a beautiful realization. So I took a big red pen, and a lot of the quite dark stuff went. Having said that, that was my own healing journey. The dark stuff was still there. I put it in words and was then able, therefore, to deal with it one way or the other. And that was really beautiful. So yeah, so the journey of writing My Steps to Sobriety, which is now in its second edition and is just being revised again towards the third edition. It is a beautiful journey in its own right. So and that's where the power of journaling comes in. So even if you don't write a book, by actually you putting your experiences down in words and let and write them. And often enough, there's something to be said about writing it by hand, because a different part of your brain is being stimulated when you write things with your hand compared with when you type them when your brain. Having said it, still both ways allow you to put emotions, which are really waves of neurochemicals, put them into words. And the moment you speak them out loud, or you put them down and your eyes read them, now that is powerful. I mean, the first time in rehab when I stood up and said, "Hi, I'm Steffan, I'm an alcoholic," I cannot remember anything after that sentence, because it was the first time I had said it. And thereafter, I went through this roller coaster of emotions, of relief, of shame, guilt, happiness, sadness, everything in the next 10 minutes. And it was me having spoken those words. My lips formed them, my ears heard them out of my mouth, and it became truth. Before that, I was able to hide. Before that, I was denying. Before that, I could hide. The moment it was spoken out, something happened, something clicked. And that allowed me to start healing once I recognized and admitted that there is a problem. The problem with us alcoholics, of course, is that 95% of us will say, no, there's nothing wrong with me. Joe over there, now look at him. He's, come on, look at him. That's an alcoholic. Me? I hold down a job. I've got a wife, a husband. I've got children. I've got a house, apartment, whatever it is. I'm not an alcoholic. Clearly not. Bullshit. That is denial.
Mm-hmm.
95% of us live in that. And that is the problem. And often enough, until something really happens that shakes your foundations and brings you closer to the realization that your life right now might not be the nicest, and that you maybe could change things if you just let others in and let others guide you. The moment until that happens, until you are ready to make that change, it is virtually impossible. Luckily, there are ways that happens. For example, DUIs, uh, drunk, driving under influence, or you punching someone's lights out. You will then often enough, a judge might actually help you to make the right steps. The problem then, of course, is that you are going into a court mandated or law enforcement mandated rehab program, which might or might not be very effective and very good. It might or might not come at a time when you're actually ready for it. So it makes it all a bit more harder. Whilst if actually an intervention is carefully planned by loved ones who take the hard work away from you
Mm.
and show their love and say, hey, look, it's all sorted. You don't even need to say yes. Um, we will drive you. Just go. And this is such a beautiful thing. This is this is a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I guess that brings me back maybe to your first question. Who am I today? And ultimately, who I want to be is a man who impacts lives. My mission is to impact 1 million lives in the next 5 years. And my mission is to actually show that there is hope and that there is help out there. And if I can get my shit together, then there's a damn good hope for everyone out there.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't think I'm the sharpest knife in the kitchen. Okay, so
Mhm.
I know how to learn, and I know how to jump
Amen
through
to
hoops.
that.
Exactly,
I can
exactly.
relate so much to your
Mm,
story in different ways. For me, I share my mental health journey because for my family, it's a taboo to say I'm bipolar.
ah,
I have codependency issue. I suffer from severe depression. I suffer from severe to moderate anxiety. I have anger issues. I have PTSD and ADHD because of trauma. So
excellent,
ADHD
excellent.
symptoms because of trauma. So yeah, I'm
Excellent.
a box of surprises.
Well, exactly.
Depends on the
So,
day.
yeah, I was about to
So
say, which Francie is coming out
yeah.
today? Exactly.
But
And
I
and
want to get out there, to get my story out, to give others hope,
mm,
because they feel like they're struggling alone, and we're over
mm,
here like, nope, you're not alone, you got me now.
exactly. And I think that's a reality. I mean, there's so many women out there who really are quite busy filing their horns and painting the hoof, because they are real bitches in their relationships, and are surprised why their marriage is on the rocks. If they could just see themselves, how they are behaving due to absolute fucked up core beliefs, things that were laid down in their early childhood, trauma that is not dealt with, and has then the flow on effects on a relationship, or hindering them to become the better person at work that gets promoted. But because they are such angry bitches, that is a dead end for them. And I was the same thing. I was the same angry bastard who
I
was
was an
who
angry
was
bitch.
exactly. So anger was my go-to
Oh my
when I
gosh,
was still drinking.
besties, besties.
Absolutely. And and sometimes I'm there is still this guy there. And and I like him. I like him because he's also a absolutely ruthless and brutal man who would be quite happy to drink out of the skulls of his enemies, that kind of dude. And there is a room for that. There's unfortunately this world is not made of fluffy clouds and little I don't know sheep prancing around. No, the the world is a challenge, and there are hard times that require you to do things that maybe are not so good. And I ended up about a year ago, I ended up in a scenario where there was quite a lot of distress and challenges coming into my life. And one morning, it was pretty much like a snap. I suddenly had this realization that this guy that I normally keep well hidden in the dungeon had come back into me and took me over. And it was the most bizarre feeling because I turned ice cold, absolutely ice cold. The challenges didn't go away, but I had a clarity, as if you stand on the top of a mountain and suddenly all the haze is gone and you can see miles in
Mhm.
absolute crystal clear things. That was exactly how I was able to look at my life, make the decisions that I needed to do in order to survive, in order to do what I needed to do to get to sort that mess out where I found myself in. And that was beautiful. It was scary because there was not a bit of emotion anywhere. My typical warm kind of, hey, the kind of guy who makes everyone else feel well and entertained, and gives hugs at work. He was nowhere to be seen. There was a man there who took action, and that action needed to be done. End of the story. After a few days, the work was done, and I kindly asked him, "Would you mind going back into your dungeon? It is, it is. I like the other guy who gives hugs, who is there for his friends, etc. I like him more. Is that okay?" And he disappeared again. So that was good. So sometimes you have to be cold as ice, to quote Foreigner. um, but it's choices. You can't always live this kind of happy life, but you can work on your environment to de-escalate tensions. You can go out there and make this world a little bit of a better place with your leadership, with your integrity, with your humility, with your all those new features that we learn in recovery. Those features that start coming out once you start dealing with your depression, with once you get a better insight in your own mental health journey, and you're actually going out there and learning what to do to move you away from the craziness,
Mm-hmm.
from the darkness, from the anxiety, when you learn tricks and when you learn insights of what to do to make you feel better. And ultimately, this is the our power that we have got, that we sometimes forget. We have got that power to put a smile on someone else's face. We have got the power of taking someone in our arms and give them the feeling that they are not alone. The simple good morning, as a when you walk into a room, that is beautiful. And that's something, I mean, it you have no idea what that single phone call, what that simple hello, what that simple, oh, you're looking good, new hair, I love that hairstyle. And if you're sincere,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you have no idea what that does to that person. That person might be ready to throw it all in, and you just being you, and sharing some of the passion and sharing some of the light, suddenly their darkness is no longer so unbearable. And that is beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. This is something that we learn when we go through shit. So would I, if I had a time machine, I often get asked, if I had a time machine, would I go back and change the things, the
Yeah.
trauma in my life? The short answer is no, I would not. Because without that trauma, I wouldn't have made all the mistakes that I made in my life. And therefore, I would have not had the opportunity to actually become this person now, with the conviction that I have got the choice to go out there and create my future, create my new life. I would have never become that person. I would have stuck as being the self-conscious, anxious, not so nice person from my past. And nah, nah, no, 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 no. So
I really
yeah.
want to cry with that answer. I told you I was gonna get emotional on this
Mm,
interview because I truly feel like that, and I always like say your darkest days are not gonna be forever.
mm,
There's gonna be a day I say I'm not there yet, but
mm.
I can smell it. I know that I'm close. And it feels amazing already. So I can't wait
Mm,
to I know that it's a journey and it's not like you're gonna get to a destination and you're like, yes, I have arrived. But I do feel a lot calmer than
mm,
I was even 2 years ago. And you're saying
mm.
that you're like on your 8 year journey.
Well, that's just the sobriety, the 8 years.
Okay.
Um, it is 56 now, and sort of, I think my life starts now. It is the next 50 years will be amazing. I know that, because I'm convinced that, my goodness, I'm growing every day. I allow myself that. So I will do absolutely everything to learn how to biohack my body, to prevent diseases, to change my life in such a way that I can keep growing up there, keep making this mind sharper and more aware and more embracing all the opportunities that we have got. Oh,
I
that's
love
that's
it.
that's it. And I think that is so important. We all have got these possibilities. If you look at others with envy and jealousy, oh, how did they get there? Well, fair call. Some of us have been born maybe richer or with better opportunities, etc. I think for the two of us, that's not true. Yet we are making something out of ourselves. We are growing. We are not letting us be shackled by the past or by genetic predisposition or by all those things. I mean, coming back to the alcohol, and with your story that three relatives, or probably far more relatives that you want to admit, that they are affected by alcoholism and that they're escaping, I think that is quite real, and therefore they have the genetic predisposition. I can virtually guarantee you
Yes.
that if
Yes.
we were to analyze them, there are 50 plus genes that make you more likely than other people to respond to alcohol in such a way that you say, oh, give me another one, give me another one,
Yeah.
kind of
For
a thing.
me, it was at the beginning of my 20s when I was like heavily drinking, and I could have had that path, but I respect alcohol because of what it has done to my family.
Mm,
That I know that I want to enjoy it, but in a healthy way. But
mm,
yeah, definitely in my early 20s, it was the
mm.
unhealthy way. And then when I met my partner, it was like he didn't like alcohol. So I had to make a different decision.
Beautiful.
And now, as a male lady, I can't, because I can't be drinking and working in 100-degree weather in summertime. So,
Well, there's a blessing in disguise there.
oh yeah, it was. It really saved my life, because even 6, 7 years ago, I was still struggling with running from talking about my trauma. It's not till 2 years ago that I found my mentor, and I was like, I'm done. I can't.
Mm,
I'm
mm,
lost.
mm.
I'm an emotional roller coaster. I don't want to do this anymore. And now we laugh because 2 years later, I pay her, but I'm coaching myself. So she's like, "Oh, so
That's
what are you gonna do this week?" Instead of
exactly
her telling me what I need to do. But it was a
beautiful.
long journey, and I had to be sick and tired of being sick and tired for me to be, I need help. I need
Mm,
professional help, and I need a specific help, because in my
mm,
case, it was guilt, shame, and responsibility that didn't belong to me,
mm,
but I was carrying it and holding it and treasuring it, instead of loving myself and giving myself grace and compassion.
mm,
Those are
mm.
new emotions that I'm feeling.
Hmm. So true. So true. But I mean, this journey will be different. And it is important to realize that when we talk about depression, for example, uh, we are talking about a chameleon of a disease that comes in all shapes and sizes. And it is a bit like addiction. It tells you lies. It
Yes.
tells you absolutely bloody lies. And that's the title of my most recent book, Depression Lied to Me.
Oh my
This
gosh.
way,
I
Depression
want
Lied
it.
to Me. And it's a multi-author book. This Depression Lied to Me is the female version. So I've invited 14 beautiful storytellers to tell me their journey with depression. And it was such a humbling and beautiful journey for me to do this book, because I got to hear the voices of these women. And there were so many similarities, yet every story was different, because these women were all different, from different backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, different countries. And it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. And having said that, it became clear that for all of these women, there was the realization there that there was this darkness, that they were helpless, hopeless at one stage. Many of them had suicidal ideation. Many of them had gone through nasty trauma. Yet they began to transform. They began to heal, often with the right people, and their journey of healing was all different. There's some people who were able to bring out a force within themselves, Others needed medications and worked through a more sort of Western health point of view. Others went into spirituality. Many of them crossed over from various times, and because it is a journey. They
Mm-hmm.
might start off with something, then figure out, well, that alone doesn't really work. What is the else, etc. And it's the same with the sobriety. You start with something. You have to take action in one way, and initially that is stopping drinking. And that is a huge achievement to start off with. But now you're sober, so what? If you have not dealt with the trauma, or if you're not dealing with the trauma, you're going to be drinking in no time, or you're going to escape with a new vice. If you're not drinking, then you're probably eating sugar until, you're mainlighting sugar or snoring it up, kind of a thing. And if you don't use sugar, then you're smoking like a chimney, or you're having sex with everything that has a heartbeat, or you gamble, all those kind of things. If you don't deal with the underlying reasons that led you to your addiction to start off with, then you will end up again in trouble. No two ways around it. But equally, in coming back to the depression, it is a journey. You have to start somewhere, and that it is the healing journey. And that journey is not fast. That you're not going once to the gym, lift a few weights, and then you say, yes, I am healthy. I'm fit. My six pack will never go away. No, no, sorry, that doesn't work like that. In order to be healthy, you need to keep doing the right things. And it doesn't help you that you go one day and do 6 hours of workout, then you can't walk the next 6 weeks because you have actually injured yourself, or you're so full of muscle
Mm-hmm.
pains. So that doesn't work. So the boom and bust, well, nice try. That's why I mean, right now, as we're recording that, we have got the 9th of January. Guess what? By now, probably more than 50% of the New Year's resolutions have already gone down the gurgler, with the people out there who started them 9 days ago.
It's
So
so
that's
funny. Sorry.
ladies
It's so
first.
funny though because you said January 9th and then I got January 8th and then this interview is not going to be posted till February. And this is
Absolutely.
just awesome. That's why I love podcasting,
Yeah.
because you get to know people from all over the
Yeah.
world. And especially a little shout out to Podmatch on the podcast. I have an ad for it, but then on YouTube I don't have an ad for it because I don't edit. But that's how we found each other, was through
Yeah.
Podmatch, and
Yeah.
it's a great community for podcasters and podcast guests to find each other. And yeah, what was your journey with your podcast?
With my podcast.
Yes.
Oh, well, same thing here. I mean, who am I to actually put something into a podcast? Oh my God. And I think I started with YouTube.
Oh,
And
nice.
I put a few things on YouTube. And initially it was purely myself. And I love photography. So I then got into filming. That's sort of a passion of mine. So I thought, okay, why not actually go around Rotorua to all the most beautiful places here in the place where I live, and do some recordings and just tell people, how do you deal with urges? How do you protect yourself from having a relapse? Those kind of things. So I did little videos on that. And that was quite nice and was lovely. And then I thought, no, I wanna talk to someone. So I brought on a friend, and then I brought other people, and suddenly the whole thing grew. So nowadays, well, and then at some stage I realized, actually, this podcasting thing, maybe this might be something. So I started to do podcasts. I basically produce the same content and release it as a podcast, and as a video on YouTube. And nowadays, the kind of rhythm that I settled into has been 2 shows a week. So I've got 2 guests typically that I bring on, one guest each week, each show. And it is beautiful because I meet people that are amazing. Some of them through to Podmatch, absolutely. Other people through people where I read a book and I think, wow,
Oh
I
my
want you
God,
on my show.
yes.
That's
I
and
have
it's
that
beautiful.
feeling.
Oh, it's beautiful. And it's so amazing. I read a book from an SAS soldier, and I thought, wow, what an insight. Got in touch with the dude, found him on the internet, and said, wow, I want to hear about leadership. I would love to talk to you about that. And bang, I had one of the top soldiers in the world I had on my or from the top regiments in the world, had him on me. I wanted to honor the Holocaust. I wanted to talk to the world about things that matter. So I've had the honor twice of having previous concentration camp survivors on my show.
Mhm.
So I I use my show to bring hope and to show whatever trauma you can imagine. There are people out there who have gone through that and then some, and have not only survived, but they have thrived. So therefore, whatever darkness you are in, there is hope. That is the key message that I want to send out. And here are ways how people have actually done that, how people have survived the most awful circumstances, the most awful trauma you could possibly think of, and are yet out there with such a passion for life. And it's probably because they have been in such darkness that they are cherishing life so much that they will still on their deathbed go out there and try to share the light. And these are the people that inspire me. This is what I want to do. And we can do that. There's so many ways that we can do that, by being speakers on shows, doing TEDx talks, to write books, within your own family. Start leading, not just vegetating, hanging out, doing things, but actually
Yes.
do the right things when no one is watching. Become proud of doing that. What was last night? I didn't want to wash up. Oh, I so didn't want to wash up. And there was this little voice, oh, come on, just leave it. Just, it's okay. And I said, oh, fuck it. No, I'll wash up. Washed up. It took me 2 minutes, if that, and made me feel better. Okay. And then I took the rubbish out. Made me feel a bit more better. And then I thought, you know what? I walked the dog. And it turned out the bloody dog had walked itself. He had just got out, had a good time. And I thought, you bloody dog. Okay, so my dog then had a bit of a growling, and I thought, okay, so I can either now stay at home. And I said, no, rubbish. So I found a place where I wanted to walk and actually did some exercise. I walked just without the dog. And I marched pretty heavily, you know. So I
Yeah.
figured out, okay, I can actually walk 5Ks in a brisk march without getting too puffy. Hadn't done that for a while. Feels good. So again, so three things, three little decisions
Yeah.
that changed my evening completely. And I was quite high. I was quite bouncy, which is not so clever when you want to go to bed and go to sleep. Hey,
Yeah.
that's
But
another
it
story. But
sometimes helps because like one of my therapists, one of her advice was like when you don't feel like doing something, do something. Just one thing and then celebrate yourself for one thing. If that
absolutely
was your face, girl, watch your face and go back to bed. But
agree.
it's that one thing that gets you
Agree.
to little by little. Now I'm working on making my bed. And today I actually said to myself, I make my bed because I love myself. I
Oh,
wanted to start
nice.
crying in the morning.
Nice.
But it's
Nice.
like letting myself know, I'm working on my peace at home. And I can't do that with a messy apartment. Because
Beautiful.
by changing, as simple as changing my shower curtain, I
Mhm.
was like, I let go of myself because I changed the I changed the shower curtains with every holiday, and it was
Ah.
of February of last year. So last year was a hard year that I was
Oh,
not
yeah.
into happy feelings. So this year is a new year, and we're
Mm.
trying to bring joy, happiness, and peace. And I can't do that if I have a messy surround in my
Sure,
home,
sure.
because my job
Yeah.
is always a shit show.
Oh, I think there's one big problem, and I certainly towards the end of last year, I was in pure survival. It was pure, let this year be finished, because I was working far too hard, far too much things had happened. It was not a good year. And looking around, I could only see the things I need to do. And it was easy to get angry with my family. These lazy boys, they didn't even, they see that there's fluff everywhere. Could they not swing the Hoover around, etc.? So I was often getting quite overwhelmed. And I now had the opportunity to just step back and get off my own hamster wheel and actually just take deep breaths and actually just look after myself a bit. And I need to remind myself of the principle of the 5-minute gardener. For those of you out there who don't know what I'm talking about, is imagine that you have got a garden, a little veggie garden, and you decide from now on, every day, I will spend 5 minutes in the garden. Never more, never less. And it doesn't matter which day it is, if it rains, hails, whatever, I'll do 5 minutes. And today I'm going to pull some weeds, and tomorrow I'm going to plant a new plant, and next day I do that. Can you imagine that after a week, you already notice a difference in your garden? Can you imagine that after 3 weeks, 4 weeks, that maybe people around you think, wow, your garden looks good? Can you imagine that after 3 months, you've got such an abundance of veggies growing there that you don't know what to eat next? I think that would be pretty likely. Not by going all out nuts, 6 hours gardening and then do nothing, but 5 minutes, never more, never less. Do the same in your house. The chores that you hate, 5 minutes. Washing up, cool, done. 5 minutes, you've done the chore. Tomorrow, we're going to hoover. The day after, we fold the washing. 5 minutes, never more, never less. Okay, now imagine doing that with your relationship. Spend 5 minutes on purpose with that person.
Oh,
And
wow.
exactly, but I mean intentional, i.e., and you've got 2 ears, one mouth. So maybe in those 5 minutes, use that ratio in exactly the same way. So shut up and listen what that person actually has got to say. Okay. Can you imagine that after a week, your relationship will be different? And that maybe after a month, this person, your significant other, might actually feel very differently about you and about your relationships?
Oh my gosh, you're like blowing my mind right now because it's so funny because today I have a little bit of example of that because it was two triggering moments, but instead of fighting everything and going into anger, I was like, what if I just hold back, breathe, count? I started counting on one, I got to 50 before I finally like let go of the thought because I can hold on for about something for dear life for forever. So, so it was funny that you say that because today I was like, what if I just step back for a minute and understand that not everything needs to go to war and
So true.
just let's just see what happens.
So true. So true.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness. So we got the books, podcast, your brand, Step to Sobriety. I'm going to have all the links in the
thank you very
description.
much.
So thank you so much for your time. I really
And
enjoyed the I could talk to you for forever and a day for real.
oh, and the same here. So thank you very much. I mean, there's so many things there that I do. I think one of the good places to start is simply go to my website, mystepstosobriety.com. And from there, it branches out and you can find anything. This year, I will go back to school and I'm going to be your guinea pig because medicine has learned a lot of new things. The area of functional medicine is all about expanding life, living life to the fullest. And there's so much there that we can learn. And one of those things is to take a really hard look at yourself. So, guys, I mean, if you are on a podcast, you can't see me, but this rich, beautiful, masculine voice comes out of a 144.5 kilogram vessel. Now, that's a lot of kilogram. For those of you with pounds, those kind of more medieval measurements,
Yeah.
you do that times 2.2. Okay. Sorry, yeah, times 2.2. That's right. So that's about 300 pounds.
Okay.
That's a lot of pounds. So I will drop this year to 99.9 kilogram. So I will drop 1/3 of my body weight. And I will do so with joy, and I will do so with passion. And you can follow me. And you can see on my website what I'm doing. This is all an amazing journey. And I want to again show you that the past does not equal the future. You have got choices, and these choices will lead you somewhere. And okay, there are choices which, I mean, I will most definitely have one piece of cheesecake this year. Like it or lump it, I will have a cheesecake. I might even have two. But overall, the majority of the choices will lead me a different path. So there is hope out there. That is what I will show you in my own journey, their life, so to speak. And therefore, I invite you to just come along. Francie, she is going out there. She is opening up her soul in her podcast. She is doing amazing things by just showing up and showing you what you can achieve by being honest, transparent. So you've got two examples here, two people who might influence you. My goodness, if you were to put a little bit of a power team together, some other podcasts, some other people maybe closer to home who coming along on the journey with you, so you're no longer alone. My goodness, can you imagine that your life will change? I
Hmm.
bet. So, Francie, thank you so much for doing all the hard work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. That means the world to me. 2 years ago, I have been talking about podcasting for 6 years. Like I started learning about podcasting six
Yeah.
years ago. And for the past 4 years, I was like, oh, maybe I should have one. And the last 2 years, I was like, I'm going to have one. And my friends were like, just start, stop talking about it and just start.
Exactly.
A
Exactly.
year later, I did not expect the journey that I have been on and meeting amazing people like you. And I was trying not to get emotional, but as a survivor of family members that have not been here, I just want to say thank you for sharing your story and giving hope. And this conversation meant the world to me because, like I said, I wish I had the pleasure to have this type of conversation with my grandma and with my uncles of like, what did you struggle with? Why did you make the choices that you did?
Mm.
And how they thrive. So I love seeing you thriving, and I'm sure you got a fan for forever now.
Thank you so much, Francie. It was an honor to be on your show.
Thank you. I really hope you guys that I enjoyed the conversation for the podcast, and then for YouTube, like and subscribe. I don't have an ad for oh, for So thank you very much. And if you want to reach out to him too, you can find him on Podmatch. And he looks for guests as well on Podmatch. So thank you again for everything. I just can't wait. I really enjoyed this conversation. Alrighty. Well, hope you guys have a blessed day. Bye bye.